Access code accepted. You are the only participant in the conference.
So I mean, it's the theories of negative interest rates, etc. I mean, this is all coming to a real head. So why would somebody say buy gold and cash is trash? That's absolutely nonsense. Unless you're talking about euros, things of that nature. Yes, euro's going to go down. They're going after cash dramatically over there, but more than 70% of the dollars, the physical paper dollars, are held outside the country. I mean, the dollar is the number one thing being hoarded globally. You can't get on a plane and with a suitcase of gold anymore. The days have changed. So I have friends in the gold business, and they can't buy or sell without reporting who's doing what. Europe, they've lowered the standards. That if you're going to buy basically anything over an ounce of gold, you have to be reported to the governments as to, oh, who are you, where's the money coming from, and what are you doing with it. So I mean, gold is not the free market solution that it used to be. It
Would you
can
be a
be.
holder of gold? Would you be a buyer of gold?
I mean, for an individual, you want to be diversified to some degree. All right. Um, but what I'm saying is that, I mean, look, 20 years ago we could hop on a plane with a suitcase full of $20 gold pieces and fly to a different country. Nobody said anything to you. Today they confiscate it. It's getting to be really serious because they're hunting money everywhere on an every possible level. Um, I mean, we have offices around the world. I travel all the time. They've subtly changed requirements. It used to be, do you have $10,000 in cash or securities? Now, when I fly to Europe, it says, do you have $10,000 of anything of value? So, what is that? A watch? I mean, it's and if you don't declare something, it's ours. They just take it. Um, in Italy, if it looks like you have too much gold jewelry on, they pull you off to the side and they weigh it. I mean, this is the governments are going broke, absolutely going broke, and this is the crisis that we face, particularly going out over the next 4 to 5 years.
And do you think that we're headed for some sort of a financial crash? I was reading on one of the financial channels that looks like the global economy, and now including America, is all slowing down. Is that adding? Is that throwing fire on the going broke scenario?
It's the biggest problem with the going broke scenario is the unfunded liabilities. You know, people don't realize that government pensions are basically the thing that will destroy everything. Because in the private sector, we contribute to our pensions, 401ks, etc. In government, they contribute nothing in most cases, and they just are granted these things. Look, I have a friend whose mother was a school teacher in New Jersey. Okay, she never had to contribute anything. She retired. She gets full health care for her and her husband for life. I mean, what do they get in health care benefits alone? You're talking about, thousands and tens of thousands of dollars a year that a private individual would have to pay for. So this is the problem, and the government. Let's say you have a small town and you got 10 cops, and 5 of them retire. You now have to pay the 5 that are retired, but now you also have to hire 5 that did retire. So the cost of government is rising exponentially. It's not just a few percent per year. We've reached the point where these pensions are going crazy. And so as a result, the cost of government is rising exponentially. Now, this is what's causing, particularly in Europe, the problem of the economic crash or decline there is that, people have been looking at the monetary side, say, oh, well, you're creating all money. Yes, fine. But then the government has been aggressively going after money every which way possible, outlawing cash in many things. You go to Australia, they just made it they're trying to make it a criminal act if you buy anything with $10,000 in cash or more. A criminal act. You go to jail for that. Even if you pay taxes on it. It's your money. Whatever, you've paid everything you were supposed to, you still go to jail. So, I mean, governments are not reforming. Instead, they're just turning to us and saying, go get the stupid bastards because, that's what we've always done. They'll pay whatever we tell them to. That's the attitude. So we have declining economic growth in the sense that you have taxes that are rising. And that has really been very detrimental because the real economic growth comes from disposable income. I mean, if I give you $100 and say, here's your salary, but give me $90 back, am I giving you 100 or am I giving you $10? They never look at what they're demanding from people. So it's just getting crazy. And
do you think this is why we're running against the Second Amendment type stuff in Virginia? I mean, the Democrats want to, and probably some of the rhinos too, want to disarm people. And I guess they have to disarm you to steal from you.
Yeah, that's.
Am I wrong about that?
I mean, look, I used to live in Switzerland for a while. You had to do your time, go get trained, etc. And then what would happen? You left and you took your gun. So every house has a gun. They also have the lowest crime rate because you're not going to go rob a house that the guy's got a gun. Or over here, it's the opposite. Oh, disarm everybody. Well, the only people you're going to disarm are the legitimate people because the criminals buy guns on the black market. They don't walk into a store and say, gee, I need a gun. I'm going to go rob a 7-Eleven, please. The black market's extensive. So the only people that won't have guns are the legitimate people. Everybody else will. So it's just really I don't know. They can't really logically think about it this way. And every time there's a school shooting, oh, see, well, fine, you can say for criminal backgrounds. Most of they're crazy people. They don't have a past criminal background, so you're not going to pick that up. It should be a mental test, not criminal background. Criminals don't go in to buy the guns. So I don't know if it's really just that, if they're really brain dead and they don't understand what the problem is, or are they really just trying to use this as the excuse to disarm people, which seems to be more logical that what they're doing, because they know we have an economic problem. The government's, this is how Rome fell. The army started splitting. The emperors became generals, and they would hail their emperor, and then they would sack any Roman city that disagreed with them. They couldn't pay them, so they started, sacking their own cities. I mean, in Chicago, you had this teachers union saying, okay, fine, we're kind of broke. Well, let's put a tax on everybody trading stocks and futures in Chicago. What's that got to do with the local school system? All you'll do is cause the exchange to leave. That's it. But it's always, okay, fine, go get somebody else to pay me.
Yeah. I drive through Illinois all the time, and they don't mow their highways, but about once a year they got help. They got they don't have enough money to mow the highways. I mean, they got places where they used to be mowed, and there's trees, this big growing up now in the middle of them. Right, there's about one mower length. That's all they can have. They got rest areas closed down with brand new, metal roof, baked on paint, roofs. Modern day. They can't afford to run them. I mean, Illinois is a mess.
That's the Supreme Court ruled that they can't, renegotiate pensions, and so either the state has to go bankrupt or dissolve itself. I mean, that's the only way out of it.
Yeah. Do you see a market crash anytime soon?
Yes. I mean, the market has come into our economic confidence model, which turned on January 18th. So this looks like we have at least a temporary high at this stage in the game. Pull back a little bit. If last week's high remains the highest weekly closing, we close lower this week, then we should pull back and get a brief correction. But is this the record high of all times? No. We're going to go much, much higher, but you have to understand it at some point in time, capital begins to figure out who's the greatest risk, and the risk is government. So at that stage in the game, when that point is reached, then you have shifts. The capital will move basically from any public type investment, government bonds, things of this nature, and they'll move into the private sector. So that's equities, can be gold. It's been, real estate at different places. You try to go to the tangible asset side that is, and equities are also tangible. So it's you try to move away from any of the public things of that nature, and that's historically how it's always been, back and forth. The Germans that went through the hyperinflation, they started hoarding anything other than money. All right, so Ray Dalio's comment. I mean, we're not at that point in time, and at this stage in the game, we're looking at cash is still king, but it's primarily in the dollar. The euro is going to continue to crash. Those are the problems we have outside the country, and you have to realize that if the dollar went down, Trump would be having a party. Trade would be improved, etc. It's when the dollar goes up that causes all the problems. When the dollar rallied into 1934, coming out of the 31 sovereign default, Roosevelt ended up having to confiscate gold and devalue the dollar. The last time the dollar went up to all-time record highs, the British pound went to par, was 1985. What did they do? They created the G5 to try to manipulate the dollar down by 40%. So when the dollar goes down, they're happy. It's when the dollar goes up that causes all the problems. And that's what we're looking at, is a strong dollar rally yet, and that will break the back of the world monetary system. Then you have emerging markets going bust, things of this nature. Europe is already being torn apart. So it's that's the real problem. I mean, Japan has basically destroyed its free market for government bonds, trying to keep interest rates from going. All that happens is you create a two-tier system. You can have the fake rates because the government buys all 100% of its bonds and pretends it's paying only negative interest rates, but to itself, I mean, why even issue bonds if you're the one buying them all? I mean, it makes no sense. The same thing in Europe. The ECB owns 40% of the share of debt. They can't afford to have interest rates go up. The ECB can go bust. The ECB is different than the Fed. The ECB, in order to get more money, even for quantitative easing, it has to have a vote from all the members. All right. In the United States, the Fed doesn't have to do that. The Fed is completely autonomous. That's it. So, what are you looking at? It's the central bank of Europe can go bust. If everybody just disagrees, that's it. It can't function.
So the big problem won't happen here in America. Something's going to happen. Something's going to blow up in Japan or China or in Europe, and you think that's how it starts? It starts overseas. Will you explain that?
Look, even the Great Depression, that's what happened.
Started overseas.
It began in Austria, then spread to Germany, then it went to affected England, and then you had South America default, China defaulted. I mean, you can go on eBay and buy all these bonds from the 1930s. I mean, that's what really destroyed the banking system in America, because they had all these foreign bonds and they defaulted. Okay, so this is what happened. So the U.S. back then was also was the center of the world financial system because of World War I and World War II. Look, J.P. Morgan had to bail out the United States. It was virtually bankrupt in 1896. By the end of World War I, we were already the financial capital of the world and had displaced Britain. By World War II, that was it. We ended up with 76% of the world's gold reserves. That's why the dollar became the reserve currency. So the capital flows came to America. If you've got tanks running around, banks being blown up, are you going to keep your money in Europe? You put it on the first boat to the United States that you possibly could.
So let's fast forward to today and Germany. And one of the things in your book, which I want to get to, you talk about my favorite basket case, Deutsche Bank, with, I don't know, 40 trillion, 50 trillion in derivatives. They tried to merge it with Commerce Bank. That's the dead and deader. But anyway, what happens? Where do you think the blow up will happen? Will it happen in Europe? Is that what we should be looking for?
You have to understand what I go into in the book, and most people don't get this, but to get Germany to even sign on to the euro, Kohl has admitted, and I put in the quotes there, that he acted like a dictator. The German people never were given a chance as a referendum to vote on anything. He just took them into the euro. And his demands were that you wouldn't consolidate the debts. So every country would retain its debt, but convert it to euros. Now, when they were creating the euro, they actually came to me. They took the whole back row of our World Economic Conference in London that year. I sat down with them. I told them, I said, look, the only way this is going to create a real currency, you have to consolidate the debts. Back then, they said, yes, we understand, you're correct. However, We got to just get the currency through first. We'll deal with the debts later because of coal. So they've never dealt with the debts. So this is why the euro's never been able to be a competitive reserve currency.
And they still haven't dealt with the debt. They still have not dealt with it.
Because they're under this false impression that had they consolidated the debts, then Germany would be bailing out Greece and Italy, etc. And I told them, you're going to end up having to bail them out anyhow. But so you take that problem of no consolidation of debt. This is also what's behind the Deutsche Bank problem. Because now they say, okay, fine, well, we can't do bailouts because that means that money would flow from Germany to bail out banks in Greece. We can't do that. So then they come up with this bail-in situation, which started with Cyprus. And it was very nice. They said, no, this is the way it's going to be. Now you have Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank's the biggest bank in Europe. It's got a problem. It should be bailed out. They can't bail it out because, oh, gee, Merkel said we're not going to bail out Deutsche Bank, so nobody else could bail out their banks. So what happens? Then there was a proposal to merge it with the French banks. Then they said, oh, no, we can't allow the French to be bailing out the Germans. So that didn't look good. So then it was like Commerzbank. Oh, well, that didn't look good because they were just in as much trouble. Then Deutsche Bank said, well, how about we join UBS and we merge over there in Switzerland? Oh, you can't do that because they're not part of the EU. So, I mean, it's a real quagmire. Politically, they can't allow it to merging with any other bank outside of Germany because Germany loses face. But then on top of all this madness, yes, they have 43 trillion in derivatives everybody talks about. But what nobody talks about is that they also have 21 trillion that they have guaranteed because they are a counterparty agent. In other words, after 07, the solution supposedly to prevent another blow up with derivatives was we'll create a central clearing place. Okay, that makes sense. They made Deutsche Bank a central clearing. So they clear their own stuff. They guarantee other people's, and this is just insane.
Is the repo market being used to prop up, the Fed repo market being used to prop up foreign banks?
It was. And that's basically what part of the problem was that banks start pulling back because now you take the situation of interest rates are rising because there is increased risk, period. Okay, I mean, it's called credit ratings, AAA, A, B, whatever, all right? People are now perceiving that the risk is rising, but the interest rates are artificially being maintained very low by the central banks. So you're getting a huge disparity between real rates and the fake rates that the central banks maintain, which are applying only to government bonds. I mean, walk into a bank and say, okay, I got a AAA rating. What will you lend me money at? Will you give it to me at even 1%? The answer is no. All right. So forget about, competing with the government and getting a negative rate. You can't even get 1%. So the whole thing is just a real giant mess. And this is what you get when you have politicians that make regulations that have no experience whatsoever. You had them create these MiFID rules, and then at the last minute, well, wait a minute, if we do that, you're gonna technically actually bankrupt banks overnight. Oh, gee, we didn't look at that. Well, okay, we'll postpone it and we'll look at revision. I mean, take Obamacare. Something simple. Yes, it sounded nice. All women should have maternity leave. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. What did they put in the code? There's no age limit. I had insurance. I was canceled. I said, why am I being canceled? And they said, oh, well, you don't have maternity leave. I said, well, first of all, I don't think I'm going to get pregnant. Second of all, I'm not, don't expect to have children at this stage in the game. But by law, Blue Cross and Blue Shield had to terminate my insurance and give me a different policy, which was like twice the price, for maternity leave, which I didn't have. Then they sent me cards for children I didn't have. So I mean, this is the way regulators are. They don't have a clue as to the real world.
Well, let's go back to the repo market. How long? I mean, you're saying they're stuck and they can't get out. Am I right?
Correct.
They're stuck. How long can they do this at 90 billion a night and 100 billion and 50 billion and every night? How long can they do this
Yeah,
for?
but this is not accumulative, okay? So it expires every day.
Yeah, but who pays? I mean, they got to roll it over. They don't have the money to pay for it. I mean, how long can...
No, the Fed can create money. The Fed has the ability to create elastic money. The ECB does not. All right, the Fed is a different structure.
Doesn't that affect the money supply and the inflation?
No, not really. It's being...
And what? Well, let me ask you this. What? I don't know this. Okay, I'm not trying to debate you. What the heck? It's wrong. I mean, I know it's wrong. I'm not crazy, right? Tell me I'm not crazy.
No, you're not crazy.
Okay, so what can go wrong with them pumping this much money into the repo market every day, billions and billions every day? What can go wrong?
Basically, what goes wrong with it is that they lose the game. They were doing this to try to prevent interest rates from rising. All right. If they did not do this, the short-term rate, which would be up dramatically. What you have to understand, central banks control up to now only the short term. Long-term rates are the free market. That's what quantitative easing was about. They went in to buy the 30-year bonds, in theory, reducing the supply of 30-year debt, and that would bring down the interest rates on the long end. This was their theory. All right. It really didn't work, and you had a whole bunch of people saying, oh, this is going to be hyperinflation, all this stuff. Again, these are all theories that are very antiquated.
So wait. I'm sorry. I want to come back because I'm not as smart as you. So what could go wrong is that they could keep doing this, and rates would rise anyway.
Correct. They've already lost control. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing this. You understand?
Yeah. John Williams said the same thing you did at shadowstats.com. They've already lost control and almost did the exact same thing. So you're saying that if they lose, so they've already lost control, but if they totally lose control and rates start rising, what happens?
Then you're going to see the United States is much different than the ECB or even Bank of Japan. We do have a legitimate bond market. It's the biggest in the world. The Fed is not buying up everything. So what will happen is that the Fed is trying to keep the rates down. The Fed loses, rates are going to go up, and you're going to see that in the Treasury auctions. It doesn't matter what the Fed is trying to do in the repo market. You'll see this stress appear in the Treasury auctions, and the government will have to start paying higher prices. So this is what will take place. Why I say these theories that people come up with, a quantitative, easing is going to, it's going to be hyperinflation. These are all very antiquated from the 18th century.
The government's worried about default, not inflation. Is that right?
They're worried about defaults outside the country in particular.
Okay.
All right. And it's a global economy. So let's say you have Deutsche Bank goes bust. And over there, their political position is, oh, we can't bail out any banks. Okay, so any foreign bank that has a position with Deutsche Bank loses 100%. So you can see it becomes a global contagion that a default over there wipes out banks globally that anybody's dealing with Deutsche Bank. So it's a serious issue. The Fed stood behind the banks in 2007 and bailed them out. That suppressed the global implications of what would happen. So why I say these theories are back in the 18th century. Look, I argued in Washington, finally got the Fed to change. They were, saying, "Oh, well, we'll buy 30-year bonds, and that will stimulate the economy." I said, "Are you really serious?" That theory assumes that 100% of the bonds are held by Americans. Hello, 70% is outside the United States. China sold all its 30-year bonds and reduced its maturity to 5 years or less and said, "Thank you very much." So the money didn't even go into the domestic economy to stimulate. It went to China and everywhere else.
Would you say the Fed is panicked, freaking out? I mean, they are freaking out about this. They must be, because the scenario you're painting is we'd have a daisy chain of global default in a heartbeat if rates go up fast enough and high enough. Is that right? Would we have a daisy chain of global defaults if rates went up too high and too fast?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, when the rates went up and they had the sovereign defaults in 1931, you had 9,000 banks, going belly up in the United States. So what we're talking about here is the fundamental structure of central banks. All right. The Fed, trying to hold repo rates down, this is the last ditch effort of them trying to hold on to power, which has been to control the short-term rate. All right, they raise rates, lower rates, etc. That's their theory under Keynesianism. All right, so what you're talking about, that's what that book is really about, manipulating the world economy. It's coming to an end. All right, we can no longer control it. The central banks are losing power. All right, that's what this book is really about. All the different manipulations government has tried to control it, and they're losing it on every possible level. So this is like the last ditch, the last hurrah or last battle for the central banks. And if the Fed loses, you're talking about central banks can no longer function. And controlling the economy, inflation, anything. It all goes out the window.
Do we get like Mad Max? I mean, are we going to be, trading shotgun shells and pieces of bread? I mean, is that where we get? Is that where we get to if this happens?
I don't know if it's going to go that far. I mean,
I'm trying to be funny here, but
yeah,
it's going to get rough if this happens.
It's going to require, really, it's an international political reform that has to be done.
Wow.
All right, and that's why I kind of go into that book, kind of the way out. We really have to look at this. It's politicians that have no clue of what they're doing. I mean, look at this. When people run for president, all right, there's no qualification. Do you have to have a degree in something? This is more or less like hopping in a cab and saying, "Oh, well, you smile nice. Do you mind if you operate on my brain next week? You'll do it cheaper than the other guy." There's no experience with these people. It's just, I mean, Trump has got the most experience of any of them because at least he's been on the private sector side. He understands debt and things of that nature and interest rates to some degree. But, I mean, most of the rest of these people, and in both parties, I mean, they've been career politicians.
Do you think Trump gets reelected? Do you think he can make it?
Yeah.
Do you think? And like you've said this before, CNN's been dogging him all that, and your friends around you. You travel around the world, you have friends everywhere. And you say, "Hey Marty," your friends, I call you Mr. Armstrong. "Hey Marty, what's up with CNN? Trump's doing a great job." Is that what they still think? Your friends around?
Yeah, no. Look, it's serious at this stage in the game.
But your friends like him still around the world.
Outside the United States, everybody likes Trump.
Wow.
They see that he's done a good job, etc. And this is all political here in the United States. I mean, CNN is no longer regarded very well outside the United States at all. In Asia, they hate it. Nobody really watches it. You know, it's just so biased.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's crazy, and that's the real issue. So
Your book sold out. Let's talk about your book here a little bit, and let's talk. I said it's sold out in 3 days. Your book sold out.
3 hours.
Sorry, three. Excuse. I'm sorry. It sold out in 3 hours. I mean, this is. I mean, I can't really. I can't. I mean, there's so much in here. I mean, if you look at what you have, just look at this. I mean, it's glossy. It's hardback. It's all kinds of stuff, including their last chapter, which is A Way Out, which you talk into great detail about that. I can't get into all that, but if you're going to give me a link on Amazon, you're going to do a third printing on this already.
Yeah,
It's only been out for a few weeks.
we'll have a third edition out. Hopefully, we'll be up at Amazon in February. I
Can you
will
buy
hope-
the book now, or is it just on back order?
It's no, I don't. I'm not even sure they take orders at this stage in the game.
Can you
I mean,
can you get on
the
a back order
London
list on your
Financial
website?
Times-
Because a lot of people are going to want this book
Financial
at those.
Times wrote about it, and didn't even have a copy of the book.
So a lot of people are going to want. How do you get? So okay, here's the question: how do you get a copy of this book if you're sold
Well,
out and you're reprinting it? How do you get a copy?
You'll be able to get the third edition, hopefully within about a month.
Do you sign up on your website on Armstrong Economics? Do you have a page to take?
No, we weren't really selling them. This was all done by Amazon. The first edition, the London Financial Times had a picture of it. The first edition's already going for $3,900.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, I couldn't believe
How
it.
much are you selling it for? How much were you selling it for?
$95.
It's listen. It's a hardback book. It's super well done. I've seen a lot of books. I've seen a lot of best-selling authors. I love the pictures. I mean, I don't mean the pictures are very descriptive, and it's very poignant. And actually, it adds to the presentation. So can I just? So I will just put up the Amazon link. Will you have some information at Armstrong Economics that people?
Yes, we will.
Well, I'll put up that link too to Armstrong Economics, where you'll have some information on how to, because a lot of people are going to be frustrated. They're going to look at this and they're going to go up sold out, and so they're going to want to go work. How can I get on a list? That's what they're going to do.
Yeah, no. Apparently, a lot of people bought it. They saw it, and then they start buying additional copies to hand out to people.
It's super well done, and it's not a bunch of I mean, I can't go into the whole thing and do a book report on a nearly 500-page book, but it's super well done, and it's written so somebody like me can understand it. I don't need a PhD in economics to understand it. So I just want I'm going to put up the links to Amazon to see if they'll have some, they'll take back orders or pre-orders or whatever. I'll put up the link to your Armstrong Economics. Martin Armstrong, thank you for telling us, what's going on in the world of this repo market, which is, a last grasp of central banks, and there needs to be a new Bretton Woods, a overall overhaul of money and how it works around the world. Is that right?
We need major political reform. Major.
All right.
We need people in government that actually understand what's going on instead of all this crazy stuff.
Well, Martin Armstrong, the book, of course, is the manipulation of the world economy and how it's and the rise of modern monetary theory at MMT, and the inevitable fall of classical economics, and a way out, how to fix this global mess that we find ourselves in. Martin Armstrong of Armstrong Economics, thank you very much for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Research in the news during the week, and I select news stories that are relevant to us, to our sponsors and our Patreon members. And I'll analyze those and give my humble comment on that. And of course, this is your humble host, Kevin Shipp, the recovering CIA officer, coming to you from the Ascent Studios located somewhere deep in the southeastern United States, amongst the trees and vines, not even discoverable by Google Earth. So welcome to my patrons, sponsors. You are what make this program go. As you know, when I came out and blew the whistle on the CIA, I lost my pension. I lost a lot, actually, and came out publicly and exposed the CIA's role in covering up information using the state secrets privilege. And since then, the CIA and I have kind of a mutual agreement. They let me come out and talk about all that stuff. Well, it's too late. I published it anyway before they could do anything. And I exposed their blackouts on my book. So they're frozen. Anything that they try to do would be illegal. So they leave me alone. But we have a mutual understanding. There's a whole lot that I know that I'll never say. There's no need to say that. But I have exposed their criminal cover-up of the poisoning of my family, and also covering up the vulnerability of our agents overseas, foreign nationals, to go into the system and identify our employees. And I was threatened to stop that, and that's where it all started. So a little bit of background on your humble correspondent. As you know from what I just said, my mission is to expose the shadow government, the deep state, and its corrupt activities, sometimes criminal, and its violations of the U.S. Constitution. Those of you out there know that I am a constitutionalist. I am neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I was a Republican. Our family were JFK Democrats, and the Democratic Party is no longer what it was. Then I became a Republican for years until the presidency of George W. Bush and John Tenet using false intelligence information to take us into probably the biggest military mistake in U.S. history, and that's the Iraq War, which completely destabilized the entire Middle East. So I have a mission, and my mission is to bring you the news on a variety of areas: the shadow government, deep state, and the attacks on traditional American culture. So that's the news that I research and select and bring to you all. So what do you say? Let's get started. All right. Here we go. In the news, Virginia Democrats push legislation to make criticism of government officials a criminal offense. Let me say that again. Virginia Democrats in the Virginia government push legislation to make criticism of government officials a criminal offense. In other words, a felony, prison time. In the wake of the Virginia gun rights rally on Monday, just after this wonderful gathering of patriots, this is what they did. Monday, Democrats in the Capitol are not slowing down their push for tyranny. They're moving a bill through the legislature that would effectively criminalize dissent against Governor Northam and other state government officials. Talk about tyranny. House Bill 1627 was introduced by Delegate Jeffrey M. Bourne last week. The legislation, quote, provides that certain crimes relating to threats and harassment may be prosecuted in the city of Richmond if the victim is the governor-elect, lieutenant governor-elect, attorney general or attorney general-elect, a member or employee of the General Assembly, a justice of the Supreme Court of Virginia, or a judge of the Court of Appeals in Virginia. A complete tyrannical restriction, criminalization of the freedom of speech. Once again, as I've said for years now, the progressives are after the Constitution. They consider it an old, outdated document, as they say, written by bigoted men, European men. And they want the Constitution to be a quote-unquote living document. For more information on that, you can go to Shipp Intelligence Report, a previous broadcast of the Intelligence Assessment with Kevin Shipp, and I get into that in great detail. So Virginia and Governor Northam, and by the way, this is the same governor that thinks that abortion is okay up to just before the baby is born and afterwards, if the doctor and the mother decide whether they want that baby to live or not. And if they don't, the baby is killed after birth. This is unbelievable. It's shocking. It's been shocking. Abortion has been shocking for decades. And I have to say, the recent pro-life march down in Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump addressed Down with the People, addressed that march personally, and it is one of the most inspiring speeches I've ever heard. Once again, Donald Trump has the guts that all other presidents before him have not had. And I would highly recommend if people go and watch President Trump's speech to the pro-life rally. It is one of the most inspiring speeches I've ever heard. Now, talking about Donald Trump, we talk a lot about whistleblowers. I'm a whistleblower, you know that. I've been out there. I've been on Fox News with Judge Janine and Laura Ingraham as a whistleblower. I appreciated them having me on because I'm full bore, put the truth out there, non-politically correct. So it was great that they had me on. Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch came out in an interview with Eric Bolling, and he said this, that Donald Trump is one of history's greatest whistleblowers, and that is the truth. Whistleblowers suffer. Whistleblowers take a risk. Whistleblowers are attacked. I know that, and every legitimate whistleblower knows that. And we know that Donald Trump has been attacked from the very day before he went into the White House, and the very day he stepped into the White House. There's been an effort to remove him from office. It's going on right now with this false, ridiculous impeachment trial. And when the Democrats get up and present their no evidence, most people are turning it off because it's boring, it's deceptive, and in the case of Adam Shipp, it's a flat-out lie. I say right here, in my humble view, President Donald Trump will be acquitted by the Senate. And let me just say this to shut down Nancy Pelosi, the psycho lady, forgive me. But Donald Trump will be, quote, in my quotes, acquitted for life. To counter Pelosi's ridiculous statement that Trump is impeached for life. But these people are evil. So Trump has come out, he's a whistleblower. He has exposed the shadow government deep state more than any other president I've ever seen, with the exception of John F. Kennedy, and we can see what they did to him. I've done a program on that. I recommend people go back on my Patreon channel and look at the assassination of JFK and the CIA's role in that in conjunction with the mafia. It's important because it shows what our government is capable of in the shadow parts of it, the secret classified parts that function outside the Constitution, aka CIA. So this is awesome. President Trump is the greatest whistleblower, I think probably maybe in American history. And of course they're after him and his family, which they did to me, but they're after him in a far greater extent than they ever did to me. So that is just awesome. And how about this? The Ukraine whistleblower, Eric Ciaramella, properly pronounced Sharmella, was overheard discussing how to take out Trump in 2017 before he even claimed he was a whistleblower. Any of you that saw my interviews in Laura Ingraham or with Judge Janine, who Judge Janine is one of my personal heroes. Anybody that watched me on Fox News will see that I came out early and exposed this whistleblower. He is not a whistleblower. He is a political operative inserted into the White House and I think connected to John Brennan at the time that he was engaged as a central figure in the soft coup against the president. So, Eric Ciaramella, the CIA analyst whose name was recently linked to a tweet by the president and then mentioned by lawmakers as the anonymous whistleblower. You see, he's got whistleblower protection. They're taking care of him. They're protecting him. Baloney. If you look at my show and my speeches, I have one on Patreon and they're out there on YouTube. If you look at my exposés on where are the whistleblowers, and that's on YouTube, you'll see that the government has a perfected systematic system that it uses, especially in the classified agencies, to systematically silence or destroy that whistleblower, even the ones that go to the IG. I went to the IG and the CIA. They tried to shut my case down, and I found out later, excuse me, by one of those IG officials who felt bad about it. And when we were at a program manager's offsite with a company I used to be a program manager for, this IG official sat down next to me with a beer and told me that the IG was after me to shut my case down because they were terrified if that site and what it was doing got out in the public. He told me that directly. I'm not going to mention his name for his sake. So the IG and the CIA was complicit in trying to destroy me as a whistleblower. I did go to the IG and they were part of the destruction campaign to try to take me out. So the whistleblower goes to the new IG, Mr. Atkinson, with information that is complete hearsay, second and third hand information. So, and you all know the story. Atkinson, the ICIG, is now under investigation because he changed the form to allow hearsay. No court in America does that. But back to what Charmella said with his buddy Sean Misko. They both spoke with the need to, and this is documented, the need to, quote, take out or remove President Donald Trump. And what a coincidence. Sean Misko later went on to work for, guess who? Representative Adam Schiff's committee, which the whistleblower, Mr. Charmella, went to try to engage in this effort to remove Donald Trump. And as soon as Mr. Charmella went to Adam Schiff's committee, he lost all of his whistleblower protection. Something news will not tell you, which puts him out there for possible indictment, and I think he must be indicted. The source came from Real Clear Investigations. I suggest everybody put that in their favorites. Real Clear Investigations. They are real investigators. They are not connected to the mainstream media. They are independent, which is critically important. I just recently put out on the Shipp Intelligence Report, and I will do it in 3 parts. I break down the mainstream media's propaganda machine, how it operates, exactly what it does, and I go all the way back to the administration of Woodrow Wilson when that system was perfected and now being used by the mainstream media. Next, Michael Avenatti. You remember Michael Avenatti? He represented, they called her adult film star, the XXX pole dancer, Stormy Daniels, trying to get Trump removed by Stormy Daniels' story and the violation of her non-disclosure agreement. Michael Avenatti, I think he threatened a major company, I think it was Nike. He threatened them. He was indicted, criminally charged, and sentenced to prison. Michael Avenatti is now on 24-hour lockdown inside the same cell that was occupied by El Chapo. So Avenatti, who the dark left, the deep state, and the Democratic Party wanted to groom to be a presidential candidate. That's who they are. I always say, if you're a Democrat, you got to get out of there. I mean, if you've got a conscience and you love this country, it's not the same party as JFK. You need to get out of there. So in my opinion, while Avenatti sits in a lockdown of El Chapo's old cell, the Trumpinator rocks the world in Davos and all the globalists with his tremendous speech before in Davos to the world about a country protecting and putting its citizens first. More on that later. Another story, male transgender MMA fighter who beat up women dubbed the bravest athlete in history. Gay sports outlet Outsports, Robinson's reign has come to an end. Clyde Ziegler, writing the publication, has declared that the bravest athlete of all time, the sports figure who best embodies the virtues of courage and heroism, is a biological male who beat the hell out of a bunch of women in the MMA. Ziegler gave the quote-unquote trans athlete Fallon Fox the moniker in a recent article explaining that the professional woman beater, quote, is an incredible part of LGBTQ sports history. This is the gay mafia I talk about. This is the gay mafia that I monitor. If you watch my tweets on Twitter at Kevin_Shipp, I tweet on this all the time. There is a gay mafia. Now, I'm not talking about gay Americans who are patriots and love this country and just want their privacy. I'm not talking about them. The Constitution protects them, and we treat them as we treat ourselves. I'm talking about the gay mafia that is attacking traditional values in America and attacking the Constitution itself. This article does not explain, because they say that this was such a courage individual. It doesn't explain how this individual was involved as a biological male with his testosterone, greater muscle mass, and denser bone structure, who fractured the skull of a female opponent and left her lying on the mat with a concussion and bleeding. one would think that the female opponent really was the one with courage to fight a man, and she was seriously injured. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to stand up against the gay mafia. The gay mafia represents only 5% of the U.S. population, and yet, because the media is using them, they're portraying them as the majority of America. And you better not say a thing about them. The UN is trying to criminalize the speech, by the way. You better not say anything about the gay mafia or transgenders, because if you do, that is a violation of human rights, Islamophobic, and on and on and on and on. Don't buy it. The gay population is only 5%. That means 95% of us believe in heterosexual relationships and marriage. The transgender population is a maximum, around 1% of the gay population. And they're pushing transgender in movies from Hollywood. You almost can't get away from that. That and homosexual sex. They're pushing that in movies in Hollywood. And Coca-Cola just did an article for Sprite where they had a transgender man as part of their commercial for Sprite. Sprite's it's drunk by a lot of people, and most of them are what? Teenagers. Next, a Democratic, and I got a belly laugh out of this one. A Democratic senator says it's a quote unquote conspiracy theory to think Dems are out to get Trump. You know, that's a CIA plan there. It was CIA who invented conspiracy theory to distract more investigation from the JFK assassination. So I guess she's playing by the CIA's playbook. Senator Mazi Hirono, Democrat Dodo from Hawaii, on Tuesday said Republicans are spreading a, quote, weird conspiracy theory, end quote, that Democrats wanted to impeach Donald Trump since he became president. The evidence is replete that that's exactly what they wanted to do. Calling something a conspiracy theory today is an attempt to stop all investigation. A classic example is 9/11. Conspiracy theorists think that it wasn't just some Saudi Arabians on a plane, that there was more, like Tower 7 going down on its own. But if anybody that says that, even the architects and engineers for truth, trained architects and engineers found evidence, strange evidence in the World Trade Center, but they're called conspiracy theorists to try to distract from their investigation. So here we got a Democratic senator using that plan. It's a plan, everyone. It's a propaganda plan. Call something a conspiracy theory. The media does it, the CIA does it routinely, and the FBI does it to stop citizens' investigation into these things. So I got a belly laugh. It's a conspiracy theory to think they were out to get Trump. How about this one? This is an article that is titled Mark of the Beast Alert. Amazon is planning to link your credit card to your hand. And that is true. I tweeted this out. I tweeted out the article talking about this. The world's largest online retailer, Amazon, is working on a way to have customers pay with a swipe of their hand. Amazon, it would be your right hand, whatever hand is dominant, right or left hand. It'll be your dominant hand. Amazon wants to do it by linking your credit card information to your palm print. That would also, I'm sure, include debit cards as well. According to the Wall Street Journal, plans are in the beginning phase, and the company has reportedly begun working with Visa. I think I may change to MasterCard. Seriously. The project has been discussed with MasterCard. Well, so much for MasterCard. I think I'll maybe change my banking with JP Morgan Chase. Guess what? Amazon is meeting with the global banker, JP Morgan. Anybody remember JP Morgan and who he was and his background and his connection with the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the globalists? Yeah, that's why JP Morgan Chase is a global bank. They're working with Amazon now for hand scanners connected to these credit cards. So Visa, MasterCard, JP Morgan Chase, and guess who else? Okay, I think I'm going to change. I'm going to bank with Wells Fargo. No, maybe not, because they're working with Wells Fargo as well. I mean, folks, this is a sponsored Patreon. This is crazy, but they're doing it. Amazon recently filed a patent application for what is outlined as a, quote, non-contract biometric identification system. Hey, that sounds really safe and secure, doesn't it? That really sounds like something that is professional and people should have. That's how they're going to present this. And I can guarantee you this is going to go to companies that are going to require their employees, companies that have security and issue badges. That's going to change, and they're going to require that if their employees get these pan scanner biometric systems to get into the building, or they lose their job. It's going to get worse, everyone. I have to say, in the book of Revelation, in the New Testament, Revelation 13, I recommend you read that. It says this, verse 16, and he, the Antichrist, the globalist leader, causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Anyone know about Telsa's recent revelation that they have technology to implant a chip in a person's forehead? Yeah, I'd recommend that you Google Telsa, brain chip. And causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. 17, quote, and that no man might buy or sell, no economic transactions. What did we just read that Amazon is trying to do with these global bankers? And that no man might buy or sell except he who has the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Now pay attention to this. This is important. Here is wisdom. Let him that has understanding count the number of the beast. It's an algorithm. It's a number. It's numeric. It's digital. Let him who has understanding count the number of the beast. In other words, it's somebody that's going to have to know about algorithms, going to have to know about this complex number system. Count the number of the beast, the Antichrist, the globalist leader, for it's the number of a man, and his number is 636, or 666. This is not going to be a 666 stamped on his forehead. This is going to be an algorithm, a digital number, a global digital number for a global economic system that this charismatic world leader is going to pull off, and it's going to happen. You know, enough said there. How about this one? Inside the first church of artificial intelligence. You know, we can't make this stuff up, everyone. We're headed for a global economic digital system, and it's right out there in plain view now. Quote, the engineer at the heart of Uber and Waymo, of the lawsuit where he's suing Waymo, is serious about his artificial intelligence religion. Welcome to Anthony Lewandowski's Way of the Future, he calls it. You can Google Way of the Future. Silicon Valley engineer Anthony Lewandowski has started the new official religion, the Way of the Future. And he says, quote, the realization, acceptance, and worship of a Godhead based on artificial intelligence, unquote. Think the book of Revelation is just a fairy tale? I think we should think again. He states in articles that I researched that AI is going to become so intelligent, it's going to be more intelligent than humans, with all of the information that is put into it. Therefore, he thinks it's a God to be worshipped. Can't make this stuff up, everyone. Here we go. A Clearview app lets strangers find your name, info with a snap of a photo. It may not be long before you'll have to forget about walking down the street anonymously. Well, I think we're already there, everyone. You can't really walk down the street anonymously anymore, and you can't have your own property wherever it is without Google Earth, which was formed with the help of the CIA, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, by the way. Without Google Earth zooming down, right down, looking in your window, right down to your driveway, and able to see the windows of your house, and with that kind of resolution. So what if a stranger could snap your picture on a sidewalk and use that app to quickly discover your name, address, and other details of your life? It's a startup called Clearview AI, and it's made it possible. There's an app, but that app is already being used by law enforcement, including the FBI, and that's going on right now. The FBI can snap your picture on a street and then find all of the personal information about it. Yeah, it's true. Here we go. Democrats are trying to block a bill that would ban sex change operations for children. Now, remember, I've reported before that they're doing this to 6 and 7-year-olds. They're not even old enough to know about or shouldn't know about graphic sex or gender. There's a case of one parent, one woman, who wanted to turn her little boy into a little girl, and so encouraged him to wear dresses and play with dolls. There was a divorce. The little boy's father did not want her doing that to his son, and he won. So the son can now dress like a little boy and go to school. Ladies and gentlemen, now remember, the Democrats and some of the media are protesting a bill to stop this. According to The Blaze, Florida State Representative Anthony Sabatini, a Republican, introduced the Vulnerable Child Protection Act. The bill would ban surgeries on minors that sterilize, including castration. This is of a kid, everyone. Vasectomy, hysterectomy, oophorectomy, whatever that is, metodioplasty, orchioectomy, penectomy. You know what that is. Phalloplasty, I think we know what that is, and vaginoplasty. Operating in this case, this I just told you about that she was trying to do. They're doing this to kids, 6 and 7-year-olds, everyone. Operating on a little boy, removing his penis, and then with vaginoplasty surgery, making it into a vagina. Everyone, this is child abuse of a high order. And the parents that are doing this to the kids or planning on doing it to kids should be arrested for child abuse, pure and simple. And with Donald Trump in office and the judges that he's putting in place, I hope this happens. I hope these parents are indicted and locked up for child abuse. I'm against government agencies like Child Protective Services, which is a horrible organization. So we got to take that into consideration. But this needs to be stopped. These parents are engaging in the worst form of child abuse. And Democrats are blocking this. The Gay Mafia is pushing this. This is just plain evil, everyone. There's no other word to describe it that I can find. How about this one? We're talking about now. Cecil Rhodes coined the term the New World Order. He was the richest man in Earth, a South African diamond merchant. He coined the term. He wanted a new world order, a global government. And guess what he founded? The Rhodes Trust for Rhodes Scholarship. Bill Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar. Now, you don't get into the Rhodes Scholarship and become a Rhodes Scholar because you're smart, you take a test, and you get in. No, the Rhodes Trust and the Rhodes Scholars choose you because you're a figure that can influence globalism in the world. Chilling. Anyway, Pope Francis, after President Trump's remarkable speech in Davos, stating the importance of a country putting its citizens first, the Pope comes out and condemns isolationism, individualism in his Davos message, specifically pointing the finger at Trump because the Pope is a globalist Pope. And I would encourage Catholics, I know a lot of Catholics, good Catholics, are really upset about this Pope. When this Pope, based on the doctrine, sits in the papal chair in the Vatican, the doctrine says that he's not just Father, the religious term, he is the Father. It is God speaking. Uh-oh, where have we heard that before? In Rome, the Pope Francis has sent a message to the World Economic Forum. If you go back and look at my presentations on the World Economic Forum and their push towards transhumanism and the elimination of religion, the Pope said his message to the World Economic Forum. I'd Google the World Economic Forum, find out who they really are. And he condemned Trump's speech, calling it isolationism and individualism. This Pope, ladies and gentlemen, trying to be, without a doubt, the central figure in a global religion, kissing the Quran and other things. This is chilling. Keep an eye on this Pope. If you're a Catholic, geez, I don't know. I think maybe of going to a non-denominational church or something. I mean, I'm sorry, but this is pretty serious stuff. Very chilling. Now, how about this one? just came out. A gay drag queen admits that the story hour that's going on in libraries, and if you know my tweets, I've tweeted extensively exposing this. This gay drag queen says that these story hour events expose kids to a lifestyle of nudity, sex, and drugs. That's right. That's the truth. That's what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, to elementary school kids in the libraries of these schools. This drag queen says, quote, drag queen story hour is really a grooming event, which I have said. They're grooming little kids to bring them into the LGBTQ community. This is the gay mafia rearing its ugly head again and trying to take our children. I know from my master's level degree in forensic psychophysiology that if you get to a child in his or her developmental stages and you twist that child, that child will have that personality for life. The LGBTQ community knows that. The gay mafia knows that. That's why they're after our children. This principal, every principal in a school that allows and hosts these gay transgender story hours, that principal should be fired, and that principal should be sued by the parents. Next, President Trump slams climate change alarmists at Davos. Quote, we will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country, or eradicate our liberty. No one could have said it better. As I said earlier, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I'm an independent, but I have become a Trump supporter. There's no president that has had the guts in history to do what he is doing. So Trump decimates the Global Humanist World Economic Forum. This is a quote, one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard that Trump gave to the World Economic Forum. Quote, today I urge other nations to follow our example and liberate your citizens from the crushing weight of bureaucracy. Quote, a nation's highest duty is to its own citizens. Honoring this truth is the only way to build faith and confidence in the market system. Only when governments put their own citizens first will people be fully invested in their national futures. In the United States, we're building an economy that works for everyone, restoring the bonds of love and loyalty that unite citizens and power nations. One of the greatest speeches I've ever heard, everyone. So next, former CIA ops officer Evan McMullen, who tried to run for president, by the way. He's a bald fella that you've probably seen on some of the news outlets, CNN. Evan McMullen said this, quote, if Senate Republicans acquit Trump, they'll own every dangerous abuse of power by Trump that follows. Mr. McMullen, I was also a CIA ops officer, and I can say to you that you, sir, are not a patriot. You're a political hack. From one CIA officer to another, I'm telling you, you are essentially thumbing your nose at the U.S. Constitution, trying to use your CIA background as your credentials. There's a lot of people out there using their CIA background as their credentials. That's fine, but you need to know what the CIA is and what it does. Here's another article. Russia spy paid $1 million by Obama. That is our tax dollars. And he was a Washington Post informant. Good old Stephen Halper, done a program on him, a longtime CIA and FBI operative who conducted espionage against the Trump campaign in 2016. Before he was elected, after he was elected, even got into the White House. He was feeding information to Washington Post reporter David Ignatius through his handler, and according to the Federalist, which describes his actions as, quote, more evidence that the intelligence community has co-opted the press to push anti-Trump conspiracy theories, unquote. This is why I've got a personal problem with Sean Hannity, who I like, watched for years. Sean Hannity is wearing a CIA lapel pin during his shows. He's also said that if he wasn't a reporter, he'd want to be a CIA spy. Sean needs to look into what the CIA is doing. Here, quote, more evidence that the intelligence community, I've been warning about this for years now, quote, more evidence that the intelligence community has co-opted the press to push anti-Trump conspiracy theories. That, everyone, is Operation Mockingbird, still continuing. Operation Mockingbird in 1976 was allegedly stopped by, guess who? George Herbert Walker George Herbert Walker Bush said that he ended in public the Operation Mockingbird, where the CIA was paying members of the press to publish CIA propaganda. George H.W. Bush said that the CIA, when he was CIA director for a very short period of time, the CIA had ended Operation Mockingbird. But what people didn't hear, and what he didn't say, and what the CIA put out officially, was Operation Mockingbird continued on a voluntary basis. Did you get that? Operation Mockingbird is alive and well. Here's an example of it. Another obvious example is former CIA Director John Brennan is now a paid analyst for CNNBC. And James Clapper, former associate, close connected buddy of John Brennan, both of these men involved in the soft coup against the President of the United States. Clapper is now an analyst, a paid analyst for guess who? CNN. Ladies and gentlemen, Operation Mockingbird is alive and well. CIA agent and mole Stephen Halper was paid over $1 million by the Obama administration through the Office of Net Assessment in the Department of Defense, ONA. Nearly half of this money that Halper made came during Russiagate, which we now know he was involved in which he not only surveilled multiple Trump campaign aides, he was involved in an effort to tie General Flynn to a Russian academic, Svetlana Lakova, tried to claim that he had a romantic relationship with her as part of the smear campaign against General Flynn. I hope that General Flynn is pardoned by Donald Trump, and I think that's certainly a very good possibility. Next, Senator Grassley demands answers from the Pentagon on FBI spy Stephen Halper's questionable defense contracts. Senator Chuck Grassley sent a letter Wednesday to the Department of Defense Office of Net Assessments requesting detailed information on context provided by FBI informant, then informant Stephen Halper, who was spying on 3 of President Trump's campaign aides during the 2016 election. Now, let's look at this one. The World Economic Forum debuts a framework for central bank digital currency. Did you hear that? Central bank digital currency. Eventually, would that be tied to economic transactions, to the use of your right hand and palm screens? No. Amazon is already trying to do it. Let us remember that Amazon has a $600 million contract with guess who? Hey, Google me. Google it. Google it for yourself. Google all of this for yourself. The World Economic Forum, WEF, together with some of the world's major central banks, has created a central bank digital currency, CBDC, policymaker toolkit. They're collaborating with regulators, central bank research, international organizations, and experts from over 40 institutions to develop this framework for a digital currency. That should make the hair stand up on the back of our necks. Next story, George Soros in Davos said the 2020 election will determine the fate of the world. And he said, quote, he accused President Trump of being a quote unquote con man and a quote narcissist who wants the world to revolve around him. Was Soros looking in the mirror when he said that? What he's doing is describing Trump as what he is. The fella is 89 years old. I don't know why evil people live so long, and sometimes the good die young. Maybe the powers of darkness in this world like to keep these people around. Anyway, next, 4 bombshells revealed in Peter Schweizer's profile in corruption. That book just came out. I'd encourage you. I have no connection financially to this, but I suggest that you go on Amazon and purchase that book. In the book, these 4 bombshells. 1, James Biden, Biden's brother, his firm received $1.5 billion in government contracts. That is a mind-boggling figure. A huge amount of money, despite James Biden having no experience. Here we go again, like Hunter Biden, having no experience during the Obama administration. 2, Frank Biden, another brother of old Slimy Joe, is linked to projects receiving millions in taxpayer loans from the Obama administration. Vice President Joe Biden, in other words, despite once again having no experience. And of course, 3, Hunter Biden's firm scored business deals with people and entities tied to governments of Russia, China, a #1 espionage agent, and Kazakhstan. And those deals reportedly scored him hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of your and my taxes. This is corruption that stinks worse than a dead fish. 4, Elizabeth Warren's son-in-law, whom she is close to, produced a film backed by the Iranian government. An Iranian propaganda film. Forgive me, everyone, but Elizabeth Warren is putrid. I don't know how anybody could vote or even support that woman. But anyway, moving on. Next, University of Oklahoma workshop leader, being on time is white supremacy. Now, I was in the CIA when the CIA was pushing multicultural diversity, and they said the same thing. The trainers, making more than $10,000 a week. I can't say the exact figure because it's classified, but I was a supervisor then in the Office of Security, and they were pushing me to have these workshops as part of my management responsibilities. So I saw this firsthand inside the CIA, which has been dumbed down because of this, by the way. But the article goes on, a quote-unquote scholar that is set to lead a workshop on race at the University of Oklahoma once argued that being on time is white supremacist. In the training courses at the CIA, they claim that white people, especially white males, the primary target. White males' thinking was linear thinking and needed to be changed to more broad thinking through the Marxist kind of tyrannical movement of multicultural diversity. And I put a paper out. I wrote a paper in the CIA to an internal CIA database that had more responses than any post in CIA history. So much so that the deputy director of security shut the entire website down, but someone leaked my story, or it wasn't a story, it was based on evidence, titled, "Will the Real Multicultural Diversity Please Stand Up?" And that article that I submitted to that database with evidence, someone leaked it to the internet, and it's out there where you can find it. And if you want a copy, just contact your humble recovering CIA officer, and I'll give you one. Here we go. Male trans MMA fighter who beat up women dubbed the bravest athlete in history. Outsports. Let me go up a little bit. Yeah. Outsports, which is the new gay sports organization. The author, Clyde Ziegler, writing for the publication, declared that the bravest athlete of all time, the sports figure who best embodies the virtues of courage and heroism, is a biological male who beat the hell out of a bunch of women in MMA, according to this article. Ziegler gave the quote-unquote trans athlete, Fallon Fox, that moniker in a recent article explaining that the professional woman beater, quote, is an indelible part of LGBTQ sports history. The Gay Mafia again, everyone. It doesn't explain how courage is involved when a biological male with his testosterone and greater muscle mass and denser bone structure fractured the skull of his female opponent, leaving her lying on the mat with a concussion and bleeding. One would think that the one with courage was the woman who fought essentially a man. We need to stand up against this, everyone. This is the gay mafia trying to destroy our culture, our sports, and traditional American values. That is their target. Anybody that's seen my lectures, briefing, and speeches, I call it Target C3. This is what they're after. They're after the Constitution. They want to change it, especially the First Amendment. First C. Second C in their target is our culture. They want to eliminate your traditional American values. And 3, their primary target is Christianity. Now, there's been attacks on Judaism lately, especially in New York by black gangs that call themselves the real Jews, beating them up, old Jewish people, beating them up in the streets. So the Jewish community is now under attack also. Next, Democrats block resolution supporting Iranian protesters. The House Democrats blocked a vote on a resolution proposed by a ranking Republican that is supporting the Iranian protesters against their tyrannical government. The Democrats are blocking this. When will the Democrats do anything that is true and good? Because they haven't done anything at all. They always do the opposite. It's a dark party, everyone. And if you're in it, get out. Okay, the resolution condemned the Iranian government for one, killing 1,500 Iranian citizens that were protesting their government, not to mention the ones that they put in prison. Two, shooting down Ukraine International Airlines commercial plane, which was an intentional act. The amount of time between the two missiles was not a missile battery. It was two separate missiles fired intentionally. And if you follow me on Twitter, you see my comments on that. And of course, in the resolution, the Iranian government repeatedly lying to its people in the world about the plane. Two Iranian news broadcasters resigned because they were being forced to publish false information to the Iranian people. Excuse me. Next, the Justice Department is reportedly investigating James Comey over FBI leaks. You know, this is the righteous Comey that published a picture of him standing in the woods looking up, saying, I think it was, so many questions. What an odd, what a strange dude. Let me tell you this, narcissism runs high in our government. I come from the belly of the beast, and I saw narcissists that were just shy of a psychopath in management positions, in this case in the CIA, and I also saw it in the FBI, who leaked an espionage case that we had when I was in the counterintelligence center, because the FBI screwed it up, and it got to the press. To save its reputation, which the FBI will do at all costs, it leaked a CIA FBI espionage case to the press, claiming it was the CIA's fault. The officer that was involved in that investigation sat right next to me, and I was aware of the entire thing. Unbelievable. A report said investigators are probing whether Comey had anything to do with the leaked documents suspected to be fabricated by the Russian government and obtained by Dutch intelligence officials. The Dutch provided it to the FBI, while Comey was director of the FBI. The document included an email detailing an alleged interaction between Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz and Leonard Bernardo, an official of the George Soros-funded Open Society Foundation. Are you getting this? And you remember it was Debbie Wasserman Schultz who was involved in the cover-up of the Yuan brothers and their complete ownership of the entire congressional computer system and what was on that system. Probably the biggest espionage success in history, maybe second to the fact that the Chinese government hacked into SF-171 forms, the applications for people for intelligence positions in the United States. I think the amount was unbelievable. I think it was 4 million of those. I got a hold of mine. That document helped Mr. Comey make the fateful decision, that document, to announce his refusal to charge then candidate Hillary Clinton in July 26. Hallelujah, everyone. That means that William Barr and John Durham are investigating, it appears, investigating Hillary Clinton and what she did, basically violations of Title 18 U.S. Code, including the espionage statutes, destruction of evidence. So James Comey is under investigation for his connection to refusing to charge Hillary Clinton. And Hillary Clinton, we hope, is now finally being investigated. Next, the FISA court has just ruled that at least 2 of the 4 Carter Page spy warrants were illegal and invalid. Remember, James Comey signed off on those. Andrew McCabe signed off on those. They gave sworn affidavits. Now the FISA court says they were illegal and invalid. What does that mean? That Comey, Page, and others were involved in criminal activity. And there should be charges. All right, let's go on. I would encourage everybody as I wrap this up to watch, as I mentioned earlier, President Trump's speech to the pro-life rally in Washington. It's inspiring. And I would encourage everyone to support President Trump. He's under attack by the shadow government deep state. There's no question about that. I come from the shadow government deep state. I know their mechanisms. I know how they do it. and they're trying to remove President Donald Trump with the help of the dark left and the new dark Democratic Party. Stand with President Trump, support him. Tell other people, your friends and family, no matter what their reaction is, that President Donald Trump is exposing the shadow government and the deep state. So that's very important. So this is the weekly news wrap up with your humble recovering CI officer, Kevin Shipp. I will be doing one of these every Friday, released around 3 o'clock p.m. If you want to get some news that you can use, join me every Friday. And thanks everyone.
Gentlemen, prepare to defend yourselves.